All right, we're doing another portion, another part to my dad's life story. And the last one, the third one we left off on, Dad was in the military, was in the Air Force, and he was getting, coming back from Japan, and then they let him off a little bit early because he didn't have much time left and they didn't want to start him on another assignment. So we're taking up from that point. All right, Dad, take it away.
Okay, I came back to Santa Cruz, California. I was mustered out at Parks, California. I took my basic in Parks, and it was had been changed to from a training base to a overseas processing base. So that's where they mustered me out, and I got a little bit upset about that because a lot of other people that had joined like a day or a month before me got $5,000 mustering out pay, and since my birthday was on January 31st, the GI Bill had been changed and dropped out on January 31st of 1955, which was right before I joined the Air Force. Right before I joined the Air Force. So I got nothing for mustering out pay, where a guy that joined before January 31st got $5,000.
Oh, and that was a lot of money back in those days.
Oh, you betcha. So anyhow, I came back to Santa Cruz and just kind of bummed around for a while.
So wait a minute, why did you come to Santa Cruz?
Because that's where my dad and mom were living. When I joined the Air Force from Apple Valley, Idaho, while I was in the service, my mom and dad moved to Santa Cruz, California.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes, and also while I was in the service, my mom and dad had gotten a divorce.
Oh, that's sad.
So just my dad was living in his house, and I was living with, and my mom was living in an apartment over at Palo Alto. And I got a couple of few jobs, just doing stuff not in my work, in my experience that I did in the service. I worked in a service station for a while, and I worked in a food freezing processing plant, and I dated a few girls, and I dated this one girl that just kind of somehow moved into with me. I didn't actually, I don't know how that happened, because I did not really invite her. But since she moved in with me at my dad's house, my mom said it was inappropriate for me to live there, so she wanted me to move with her in her apartment in Palo Alto, and so I did. There was a couple other girls that I dated. One little girl I dated, a little 15-year-old. I was 20 at that time, and I was dating this little 15-year-old. And one night I took her out, and we went to see a movie, and then came back and had some meals and stuff. But when I took her home, when we got about a block away from her house, we turned the corner on her road, and it was a couple of police cars with red lights flashing stopped in front of her house. And so I said, "Why would they be at your house?" Well, she said, "I don't know, but my mom told me I couldn't go anywhere, and I snuck out." So maybe.
Oh no.
So I said, "What are you gonna do then? I can drop you off. You can walk the rest of the way." "Oh no, I don't want to go home." So I took her home and took her to my house. Spent the night there. I can't remember if that was the same girl that we had an incident where Three-Fingered Louie was looking for me to beat me up because I had supposedly had insulted one of my girlfriends. I can't remember whether it was that girl or not, but I didn't remember insulting any girl. But I was watching out for Three-Fingered Louie. So I guess about a week later, I was in this bar, and I went into the restroom, and I had to start talking to this guy at the bar, and we were shooting the breeze, and I went to the restroom, and he had to go too, so I'd noticed in the restroom that he only had 3 fingers on one hand, and his name was Louis. So I said, "Are you the 3-fingered Louis that's looking for somebody to beat up because they insulted their girlfriend?" He says, "Yeah, why?" I said, "Well, I'm that guy." He says, "Well, I met you at the bar and I got to liking you, so I'm not worried about beating you up anymore."
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you admitted that guy.
Well, I was ready to, fight if you wanted
You want
to.
to get her over with, so
Yeah.
it would be looming over you all the
Yeah.
time.
So that was, I think, the last time I ever saw him, anyhow. But while I was working at the food freezing in the cannery, it was food freezing and processing plant.
Okay.
I got I don't know if I mentioned in the last session that while I was overseas, I got a letter from my girlfriend, Frances. It's kind of like a Dear John. She didn't really say she wasn't going to stop dating or anything. She just said she wanted to date other people, too. So we just stopped writing. So I hadn't heard from her for 3 or 4 months while I was over there. And so that's why I was dating other women while I got home. I thought that was just over with. But all of a sudden I got this letter from her, and she sent me a airline ticket. She was in Bermuda where she was stationed. Not she wasn't stationed, but her stepfather was stationed at the Kennedy Air Force Base there in Bermuda. And she sent me an airline ticket from New York to Bermuda, and said, we wanted to get married. And that was the first thing from my mind, but when I first met her, I knew that was what I wanted all my life. So I got on a bus and went to New York City, which was another story. The bus ride was kind of an adventure too, from Santa Cruz, California to New York City.
Yeah, that's a long bus ride.
But when I got there, there's a song that the I can't remember, some quartet, some young guys, freshmen or 4 freshmen or something like that, sings about the riding forever on the PTA or
Yeah, I know what you're talking about that.
I can't remember what it is, but it's talking about the underground subway, where they're riding forever because they couldn't get off because they didn't have another dime or whatever. Well, I didn't know how to get to the airport, which at that time was called LaGuardia. Now it's called some guy's, some mayor's name. I don't know. Anyhow, it was a different name. But anyhow, I didn't know how to get there. But so I asked the porters there, how do you get to the airport from there? And they give me this long explanation about you catch the A train and go to the R station and get off and go over to the X station and go and get on that train and go to the Z station, and then so it was big, long, drawn out things.
Unless you wrote it down, you would not be able to remember.
Yeah. So I tried to remember it, and I tried to follow their directions. And when I ended up where I should be, the airport was nowhere in sight. So I asked another one, and he told me, well, you get to the S station and go to blah 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 blah. And this was like, luckily I was not. My flight was not until like I think 7 or so in the morning, and this was like 11 o'clock at night. So I spent actually about 7 hours trying to follow these porters' instructions, and never getting close to the airport. So it just happened that I saw a airline pilot in uniform, on a train, getting on a train, and I says, I got a 50-50 chance he's either going to the airport or going home.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to follow him. And luckily he was going to the airport.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
So we got to the airport, got on the airplane and flew up to Bermuda. And her mother and her stepfather and her, Frances, met me. And she was so gorgeous. She had her hair done in long curls like what was that movie with Clark Gable and Elizabeth Taylor? about southern thing. You know the.
But anyway, she's
Yeah.
just like a movie star.
Yeah, she looked like a movie star, and her hair was so beautiful. And that red hair was always so beautiful. And so when we got there, we started planning the wedding, and we were going to get married in the Air Force on the Air Force Base at the chapel. And I guess about 3 days later, we got married and spent our married night in one of Margaret's friends. They had a couple of friends there. They was married, and they came and spent the night with my Margaret, and me and Francis spent the night at their house, at their house. Had a wonderful night. But the next morning they came back, and that was a strange experience because they fixed us breakfast, but when I have breakfast, bacon and eggs or just eggs and toast, but I also had toast. They didn't give you any bread. They just gave you fried eggs, and that was it. So we thought that was kind of strange.
That's true.
So after that night and next morning, was spent with them, we went back to Mama Margaret's house, which was a beautiful little coral cottage on Harrington Sound Road, which was the back porch was a little pier off Harrington Sound in
Little
Virginia.
pier?
Yeah, what I say, Pierce?
I couldn't tell for sure.
Yeah. Anyhow, I got a job at the Air Force Base at the. We had a little snack bar out on the beach on Harrington Sound, and I got a little job as what I call a beer can picker up. They call me a bus boy. But I
did that at Frontier Village in California.
Yeah. I also made poor boy sandwiches and so forth, and leads me to a very interesting episode. While I was working there, I was making poor boy sandwiches, and this was almost like a foreign, well, it was, I guess, foreign country, and there was on the beach was a lot of real skimpy bikinis, really nice looking little young girls. And I remember I used to cut the poor boy bread, the long loaves. I'd hang on to them and slice them, and then when I get close to my fingers, then I'd transfer my hands to the other side, finish slicing. Well, just as I was slicing, this really beautiful young thing in a very skinny bikini walked by, and I had to look for it, and I almost sliced my fingers. Shame on me. But anyhow, that was a good job. I liked that. And when I got home, every night I'd go, first thing I'd do was just go out, get my bathing suit on and jump off the back porch, which was a pier, into 50 foot of the most beautiful South Sea water, like a South Pacific.
The pier was 50 foot off the water?
No, the water was 50 foot deep.
Oh, wow.
The pier was only about 4 foot off the water.
I thought you said something one time about cliff diving or something. Was that in Bermuda, or no, you never cliff dived?
Never cliff dived.
Okay. So that sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
So what were y'all living in? Still living with Mama Margaret, or were you living with a little cottage? I can't remember what you said.
Well, the Coral Cottage was Mama Margaret's house, and we lived with Mama Margaret for about 3 months.
Okay.
So we had basically a 3-month honeymoon in like a South Pacific island.
Yeah.
Beautiful water. I remember one time I didn't realize it was 50 foot, and I've always been good at holding my breath, and I would go out there and dive down to the bottom, and they had a little animal called a sea cucumber, and it was like a big cucumber, but it was a very slow moving slug type thing, and so I dove down and got one, and I had one in my hand when I came up, and this guy was going by in a small boat, and he asked me where I got it. I said, off the bottom. He said, you can't dive down, that's 50 foot. So what? I dived in. Why do you think I got that? He was amazed that I could go down 50 foot and hold my breath that long and get these cucumbers, sea cucumbers.
And that's what those Japanese women did all the time, right? They could hold their breath for a long time.
Yeah.
What were they doing?
They were just catching fish and stuff, and oysters and
Yeah,
clams.
pearls and
Yeah,
stuff, right? Yeah, okay.
yeah.
So then y'all lived there for 3 months and had like a long, beautiful honeymoon.
Yes, and we decided we had to get down to business and me get a real job in my occupation. So we moved over. We flew back to the United States, and since the closest place around from Bermuda basically was Washington D.C. That's where we went,
Okay.
and we moved to a little apartment in Suitland, Maryland. 1 bedroom, no air conditioning, and of course she needed air conditioning in that weather, and we lived there for several months, and she got pregnant somehow. I don't know how that happened, and she was. I was looking for a job, and walking the streets. I went to a employment agency, and they were giving me assignments to go, get a job. And since I didn't really have any money, I couldn't catch a bus or a taxi to go there.
Wow, you were really strapped.
Yeah, and so I would walk like 20 or 30 blocks to this destination, and it was hot.
Yeah.
So when your white shirt and your tie and all that stuff that I was wearing to make a good impression, but it get dirty because your
Sweat,
neck.
yeah.
So the employment agency mentioned that. It says you need to change your shirt, and I said that's the only shirt I've got, and it wasn't the only shirt that I owned, but it was the only shirt that had been sent from Bermuda. We still had a lot of my clothes in Bermuda. So, but actually, Francis would actually wash and iron my shirt every night.
Oh my goodness.
So when I walking the streets to get that job, I wouldn't look so dingy. And I finally got a job at an insurance company in their data processing section, and worked there. I got $62 a month.
Wow.
And
So let's look at the prices of things back then. So you got $62 a month, which is like $20 a week or so. What was the price to rent that 1 bedroom apartment?
well, we could get. Oh, I can't remember what the apartment was, but it was probably $60, something like that.
A month?
Yeah,
Couldn't have been that, or that $60 a month for your job wouldn't
I don't know. We were getting by. The thing is, we could buy 5 or 6 big full grocery sacks for $20.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the grocery store and you could buy a lot of groceries.
Meat and all kinds of stuff.
Meat, bread, milk.
When you say so, was your apartment like including utilities and all
Oh
that?
yeah.
Okay, so somehow, but you weren't rolling the dough after you had to pay your expenses.
No.
Okay.
No, we weren't rich, obviously. And we enjoyed it though. We got to know the neighbors, and the neighbors were all in their same situation that I was. So
An age group kind of.
age group and financial, because we were all living in.
Young, married, getting ready to have babies, or just having
and
babies.
some of them had babies already. And I remember one time it did have a pool though, and me and this friend of my neighbor, in the same actually little section of apartments, were in the pool, and we were playing catch with this ball from one end of the pool to the other, and for some reason the lifeguard thought that was dangerous and told us we had to stop that. So we stopped it, but we kept on acting like that was a ball. We was throwing an imaginary ball, and he didn't like that either. So he got mad and he says, "I told you to stop playing ball." It's just, we weren't playing ball. There was no ball. We weren't throwing anything. So he says, "Well, it's against the rules." And
It's a little pantomime.
this was another thing, another section where Southern boys, I didn't realize some
Prejudice?
not prejudice, some
Bias?
sensitivities
Yeah.
of words.
Yeah.
And he said it was against the rules. So I said, "Where'd you get your rules, boy?" And he said, "What'd you say?" Got all bent out of shape
Well,
for
he
that.
wasn't black, was he?
No, he wasn't.
Okay.
And so I was confused. He says, what'd you say? I said, where'd you get your rules? What'd you call me? I said, boy, get out of the pool. You're kicked out right now.
Oh my God.
And I later realized that the boy was an insult to a white Southern boy. So, well, that's something that I can
So
say
he
to.
was considered Southern, but he lived in Washington D.C. That's not Southern, is it?
Well, Maryland, Virginians or Southern.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyhow, so I went to the office to complain about him, and this lady was kind of a snot anyhow, and I says, I told him that he kicked me out of the pool for being, for playing imaginary ball, and all that jazz. And she says, Jazz, I wasn't aware there was music at the pool. And I said, oh, all this crap. Crap! Don't use those filthy words to me. I said, oh, Mike, just forget it. So I went on back to home. Another incident we had at that apartment was every year we had to get a new license plate, of course, just like you do here. And in Maryland, they would just change the colors from blue and white to white and blue every year. And of course, like I said, I wasn't rolling in the money, so just after the third or fourth year, I could not afford to buy. I had this little car that I bought. That's another story. That I bought, and I took the license plate and repainted it the right color. And I'm not an artist, so the paint job was terrible, and I knew it would not work. So I just left it in the back floor, on the front of the back seat. And the year before that, before I did that, they confiscated my car because it was on private property, and they put a little notice on it for 10 days saying that if you don't move this car within 10 days, we're going to confiscate it. And of course, that took me extra money to get out of Hawk and all this stuff, and I got it out. Somehow got it out. But this year, when I painted those things, they confiscated it again, and they didn't put the 10-day notice on it. So Frances, I was really surprised because she was always so meek and shy. But when that record truck come to pick it up, and while they were hooking it up, she went out there and really argued with him. And you didn't put the 10-day notice on there, but she really was fighting with him. And so anyhow, when I got off work and came home,
They took it anyway.
Yeah, they took it anyway. And that night, later in the evening, about 9 o'clock, I got this knock on the door, and I opened up the door, and there was 2 6-foot police officers in there, and they says, "Your name Gordon Williamson?" "Yes, sir." "Come with me." I says, "What did I do? What did I do?" He said, "Never mind, just come with me." So they picked me up and took me to the police station, and they put me in front of this desk sergeant. And he's, threatening me to put me in jail and all that stuff. And I said, "Well, what am I being charged with? What's this thing?" He says, "Well, you painted those license plates. We found those license plates. You painted them." I said, "Yes, but I wasn't going to use them because I could tell the job was not mine." "Well, can you prove you wasn't going to use them?" I said, "I always thought you had to prove had to prove that I was guilty, not you. I had to prove I was innocent." And I was shaking my finger at the cop, at the desk sergeant.
Okay.
And so after they harassed me for an hour or so, they finally said, "Okay, you can go." And I says, "You mean I got to walk back, 5 miles to my house again?" "Okay, I'll let the cops take you home." So they took me home, and as I was going home, one of them said to me, "Boy, I sure am glad you stopped shaking your finger at that sergeant because he was going to put you in jail." I said, "You're going to put me in jail for shaking my finger at the sergeant?" "Yes, he could." Okay.
Wow, that's crazy.
But that was a lot of fun game. So then we moved to.
Was she still pregnant?
Oh yeah, she was still pregnant. And one of the times I remember, since my car was either confiscated or couldn't have a license, I walked to the store, which was only about maybe 6 blocks. It was wintertime. Snow, didn't want to snow, but it had a lot of snow on the ground and ice on the roads and so forth. And I walked to the store and got, I think, 3 bags of groceries. And I'm carrying, I had a long overcoat on, and I'm carrying this 3 bags of groceries, and I'm slipping and falling down, and one of the grocery sacks split, and so I put what I could in my pocket of the overcoat I had on, and put the other stuff in the bag, and I'm carrying, and I slip and fall again, but luckily didn't break anything. And I had a real rough time getting home that day.
That's terrible. And you said there was ice on the road? And
Ice
stuff?
on the road and snow on the ground.
And you had to walk? What was wrong with the car?
Huh? Well, the car was either...
Oh, they never gave it back to you?
Oh, yeah, they gave it back. I got it back each time they took it.
Okay.
But I guess it was either, you know, not have a license number plate because I couldn't afford it for a while or whatever.
So you poor guy, you had to walk because of stuff like that. You had a car, but you couldn't afford to get the license renewed or whatever.
Yeah,
oh gosh.
Yeah. But when I bought that car, it's funny. When I bought that car, I bought it for $395 from a used car lot, and
what kind of car was it?
it was a 1953 Chevrolet,
Okay.
a four-door sedan, and
What color?
I was a light green with dark green tones. You know,
Sounds nice.
the fenders were, I think, dark green. And I bought it on a Friday night on the way home. I stopped. I took a bus home from work. I was working in downtown Washington D.C. And I stopped at this park. I must have saved up some money, I guess. And I think I had already changed the job from the insurance company to the George Washington University, and making pretty good money. I think I was getting a lot better money, and when I bought that car, and I bought it on Friday night on the way home, drove it home, got on and was going to take a ride on Saturday morning. And Saturday morning, it stripped the timing gear.
Oh.
So I called up the guy, and I says, "Your car stripped the timing gear, you know, the one that I bought Friday night." He says, "No, it didn't." I said, "What do you mean, no, it didn't?" He says, "My car didn't strip the timing gear. Your car did."
There was not even a 30-day warranty on it?
Not even a 10
Nowadays, there's always a 30,
Yeah.
It's just a 30-day, that's
Yeah,
all,
yeah.
but they give you 30 days.
So anyhow, me and this one of my buddies that I lived in the same apartment section there, went and bought a used motor off a junkyard and put it up on an A-frame out in the woods there, in close to the house. And we spent about 2 or 3, maybe 4 weeks pulling that, you know, we built our own A-frame and pull that engine out, put the old one in, the junk one in, and got it running and so forth. And we drove it for, I guess, the rest of the time we was there. I think I sold it when we moved away from the Washington D.C. area. But the job that I got in at the Washington D.C. was, like I say, George Washington University, and I can't right now relate $62 a month to a yearly thing, but I know when I got the job at George Washington University, it was $3,000 a year, which was more than what I was making at the Occasion Mutual Life Insurance Company. And it was a very good job. I loved it. I loved well, didn't love him, but I got along with the manager. He liked me very much.
You get $3,000 a year, so that was at least like 200 something
Yeah.
a month. So that was a big job.
Yes, and I got in trouble a couple of times, and I could always the guy was easy to manipulate, and he would be chewing me out, and I'd be making faces and so forth, and he'd say, "Just get out of here. I can't stay mad at you." And anyhow, I worked there for 6 years and doubled my salary to $6,000 a year.
Wow.
And then I heard that they were hiring out at Goddard Space Center in Maryland, which is basically not quite on the other side of we had a beltway like we have here in Houston, any beltway, and it was on the other side of the beltway. And I went over there, and like I said, I loved my job at George Washington University, but you know, for more money, it's more money. So when they asked me how much, when I interviewed at Goddard, they asked me how much money I would have to come over there, and I gave them a great big figure, not figuring I'd let him get it because I didn't really want to leave my job. So I said, well, I couldn't come for less than $20,000 a year, making $6,000. And I said I couldn't come for less. He said, okay, you got it.
That was a lot back in those days.
Oh, you bet your booties. I remember a sign on my manager, behind my manager's chair in his office. He says, I can remember wishing, loving to make the kind of money 20 years ago that I'm starving on today.
Yeah.
But 20,000 was good money.
Yeah,
I was making.
definitely.
I was really in clover. I bought a new motorcycle.
Can you remember like what the rent would be, so we kind of get an idea of how much $20,000 a year would be worth?
Well,
You were still renting an apartment.
yeah,
at
I
this
was still
point?
renting an apartment at Goddard Space Village. As a matter of fact,
That's so. When was Pauline? Pauline born yet?
Oh, Pauline was born while we was living in.
Well, that's part of your life story. That's more important than just your job. So go back.
Okay, well,
Talk
in
about that.
in that car, Frances was getting bigger and bigger. Not in the car, but I mean, she was getting bigger and bigger, and she was due any time. And this friend of mine, I think from work, had invited me and her out to dinner. No, I guess it wasn't from work, because I think he was one of the guys from the apartment. He was going to take us out to a restaurant. And so we were in my car, in that same old junk car that stripped the timing gear, my car. And we were driving towards this restaurant, and all of a sudden she says, I think it's time. And so she'd already made some doctor appointments at his apartment right close to the grocery store, which is about 5 blocks away from where we lived in the apartment. So
Was the hospital?
for some reason he was driving. Maybe it wasn't the same car.
Yeah, you said he was taking you. I thought.
Yeah, maybe. Did I say? Well, anyhow, whatever car it was, he was driving.
Okay.
And he was so nervous that she was going to have a baby right then that he was going like 2 miles an hour. And she kept saying to me, tell him to hurry, tell him to hurry. I said, move faster, move faster. So he speeded up to 3 miles an hour. I'm sure he was going faster than that, but he wasn't really in a big hurry. He was worried that the baby was going to be born in the car.
So let's slow down so we can have the baby in the car.
Yeah. So finally got to, it wasn't even a hospital, it was a medical clinic. And Pauline was born there. And
Did you have to wait in the waiting room? What was it like?
yeah, that was something else. They didn't want me in the delivery room.
They didn't let men in the
Yeah, back
delivery
in
room
them
those
days,
days.
they thought it would be.
They just didn't do that. in those
Yeah.
days.
So I had to wait out in the waiting room.
How long was it taking for her to be born?
It was only about 3 hours.
So you were in the waiting room, and were they giving you any updates, or you just totally had no idea what was
Just
going on?
no idea, totally idea. Then they finally came out and said,
Were you panicking and getting nervous?
No, I was just waiting, wanting to hurry up. And they finally come out and told me I had a new baby girl. And that was Pauline.
And how did you feel?
Well, I wanted a boy, but...
And you got 4 girls!
So I think we only stayed in the clinic about 3 days, and then we...
She actually stayed in the clinic, huh?
Yeah. We had a little hospital.
And what did you think? How did you feel when you got to hold the baby and stuff? This was your first baby. So.
Yeah, well, I thought she was kind of fragile, but I didn't mind holding her. And we got along real well. So we took her back to that old sweaty apartment with no air conditioning.
And that was when you were still living and you were still working at the university?
Yeah, no, this was when I was still working at Acacia.
What?
At the life insurance company.
Okay.
They call it Acacia Mutual Life Insurance Company.
Okay.
I need to tell you a story about when I left there. They was told when I was hired that I'd be on a 45-day trial to see how good I am, and if I was good, I'd get a raise at 45 days. So, and at the end of 45 days, I knew I was doing good because I was getting all kinds of praising, So when I went into the boss's office the morning of my 45th day, I asked him about the raise, and he says, "Oh, well, right now we're doing these salary appraisals and so forth. We can't give any raises right now." I wasn't really happy with that, but I said, okay. So he said, we'll take a look on 90 days. So on my 90th day, I went in there, and they said basically the same thing. So then they said another 45 days. So the 45th day, for the third time, I went to work, and I did not go to work. I sat in his office, in his waiting room out in front of his office, until he got in, because I got there about 7. He didn't get there about 8 or 9. So while I was sitting there in his office, I noticed on this reading material was a directory of all data processing managers in the area. And it was a small book, so and when he came in, I said, it's been, another 45 days, and I want to know if we're going to get a raise. He says, well, blah, blah. I said, no, just give me a yes or no. He said, well, no. I said, fine, goodbye, I quit. And I went home, and I started calling people in that directory that I've stole. And the third one I called told me, come on down, I need somebody right now. So I went down to him in my little junk car and had a 15-minute interview, and he hired me.
Wow.
And like I said,
and this was what job?
This was the George Washington University.
George Washington University. Okay.
Yeah, and that was when I cut the bus from my apartment to there, the bus didn't go all the way to the university. It went just right down the, can't remember the name of the street, but it was the one street right in front of the White House.
Oh.
So when I got off the bus, I had to walk the sidewalk a couple blocks right past the front of the White House.
Wow.
And one time when I was walking there, I noticed there was a crowd at the gate. They had a big wrought iron gate and with and fence along there. So I asked the crowd what's going on, since President Kennedy is coming out in a few minutes.
Oh.
So I just I don't know why I had a camera with me with a flash attachment and flash bulb, and so I waited, and I was in the front of the crowd right next to the gate where they opened up. He had to stay behind the gate, and this cop, nice cop, he said, I'm going to stand right in front of you so you can, nobody gets around you, and then when the car goes by, I'm going to step out of the way so you can get a picture.
Right.
So he did, and they come in a convertible limousine, and President Kennedy was sitting right there smiling at me.
Wow.
And he stepped out of the way and took a picture, and then I quickly put a new flash bulb in there, and he turned around just as I was getting ready to take the flash, and I flashed it right in his eyes. He said, "How was that?" "Oh, I'm blind."
Kennedy?
No, the cop.
Oh, the cop.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I don't think I've ever heard that story. If I have, I forgot.
Yeah.
So see, it's a good thing I took you back. Now I want you to tell more. You're just like only talking about you get jobs and stuff. How was it like, the adjustment of all of a sudden having a baby and crying and this and that?
Oh, well, she had colic, and she cried a lot. And one time we had this lady come from the apartment right next to the next wall, basically. And she says, "Do you know your baby's crying?" "No, I didn't know that.
We're just going out of our mind here, but we didn't know that.
And she says, "Well, I got some paregoric that can maybe help her out a little bit." And Frances, it was, she was a student for nursing. She was going to be a nurse in Bermuda, but she quit, so she had a lot of medical knowledge. She says, "I'm not giving my baby any medication without a prescription." The lady says, "Oh, you're probably right. Yeah." But we had to suffer through that, through her crying. We had a crib in our one bedroom, which, by the way, our bed had cracked in the middle, and we had a coffee can, empty coffee cans sitting on it to hold the bed up. So furniture was rented.
Before you got your really nice job, so you were still more poor.
Yeah.
Barely making it look. Paulie was in there with y'all.
Yeah.
And it was very cramped and hot.
Yeah. Oh yeah, very hot.
So she was irritable and probably made y'all feel irritable with her crying.
And Grandma used to walk around in her shorts and bra.
She was so hot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, she wasn't grandma then, of course.
Yeah, no, she was your wife.
Brand new mother.
Not even my mom yet. She was
Nope.
Paulie's mom,
Yeah.
and I was only a gleam in your eye.
Yeah. But it was interesting to have a new baby in the house.
Did it feel like made you feel more overwhelmed? Like I really have to step up and provide for my family.
Yeah, not overwhelmed, but it made me feel more responsible. Yeah. So we had some rough times financially wise, but we didn't have any other problems except finance. I'm not sure. I can't remember where I got the job at George Washington University before we moved. No, we didn't. I know we didn't because that's another story. When I was still in that apartment when President Kennedy was inaugurated, and so that I was working. I was working at George Washington University then. Because that story, I was in that apartment, but it's okay. So I was still in that apartment when I was working at George, and the day that he was going to be inaugurated, it was a real bad snowstorm, and so the boss told us to go home because it was really starting to build up, and it was like 2:00, and normally I wouldn't get up till like 4 or 5, I think. So there was such a bad storm and also heavy traffic because everybody was getting off, and that I had 7 accidents. Rear end collisions and sliding into people.
You had them?
Yes.
Wow.
My car was in 7 accidents on the way home. You'd be going, and bumper to bumper, and then all of a sudden somebody would stop or somebody would hit a slick spot and slide into you, crunch.
And y'all just kind of let it go? Cause
Yeah, mostly we just say,
you couldn't help it. And everybody was like, okay, that's not how it is nowadays.
So the last one I had was when I was going across the 14th Street Bridge, and that was after I got past that bridge, I could veer out of the traffic and go down side roads and get home. But in the middle of the bridge, had 6 lanes, 3 in and 3 out. Well, since it was such heavy traffic, they opened up one of the lanes. For a while they opened up one of the lanes oncoming to outland. So now they have 4 going out. Then they opened up the 3rd one, 4th one, 5th one. Now there's 5 lanes going out and 1 lane coming in, right? Well, I'm about 100 yards in this last lane away from where I can make a move and get out of this traffic. And there's nothing coming. So I get over, I'm in that incoming lane, and I almost make it across the bridge until this one guy came off a side road and come for me. And I stopped. I'm right there in plain sight. He didn't stop. He just rammed into me head on. He was only doing, like 20 miles an hour, but I'm here, you can see me, stop, you moron, but he didn't. Anyhow, so he said, well, I don't know how he got past me, but he said, what I'll do is I'll go across the bridge and then turn around, come back, and we can get our insurance and all kind of stuff, and show each other's driver's license, so forth. I said, okay. So he took off, and I knew it would take him an hour to get. It wouldn't take no traffic, so he'd get across. But to come back, it would probably take him an hour. So I said, and I took off. And my car was leaking. It busted a hole in the radiator, so I was leaking water. And getting hot and steam coming up and all stuff. But I made it home, and never heard another thing about that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you were a young family, and then you got your job making a bunch of money at Goddard. How old is Pauline by this point when you? Well,
I think while we were in, we moved away from that apartment and moved into Alexandria, Virginia. At a 316 North Howard Street, and I think you were born there, not in that apartment, but in a hospital when we
Alexandria, Virginia.
When we lived there.
You were living in Alexandria, Virginia.
Right.
But you were working at Goddard Space.
No, I'm still working at George Washington University.
Oh, okay.
And now
You were skipping over both two babies when you were telling your story. You skipped over me and Pauline because you just went right on to then I got a job at Goddard Space. So we know what's more important to you now. It's your job.
well, you're still here.
Yeah, but
Anyhow, let me finish here. I'm not sure. I think Rhonda was. Can't remember where Rhonda was. I think Rhonda was born there too.
we were both born. Me and her were both born in Alexandria,
Yeah.
Virginia.
And then we had a couple. I don't know how long we stayed there. But we had a couple of winters up there, and the school. Paulie was going to school. First grade, and the school was only about 50 yards from the corner of our apartment, so just right across the street and down the street a little bit. And during the winter time, we lived in a basement apartment, so we could just open up our basement window and crawl out into the snow.
Oh my gosh!
And we played in the snow. I got some movies, not videos, but movies of me and Pauline playing in the snow and behind our apartments. And the snow the winter had kind of like frozen over the snow, so it was real icy. And she kicked the ball, and it was spinning backwards and just sliding across the snow in the movie. Okay, and then we moved. That's when we moved to Goddard Space Village, and that's when Rhonda was.
I remember that.
No,
Rhonda was born in Alexandria too.
When Julie was born, yeah.
I remember them being in the Goddard Space Village or Center.
Yeah.
Apartments. I remember that playground. They had like a rocket ship.
Yeah.
And we had like a big grassy hill that went down.
Yeah.
That when it snowed, what did we used to do when it snowed?
We sled down it.
Remember we had that round one.
Yeah. That was one one of the things that made me so sad about Francis. We were sliding in the snow. I can't remember whether it was there or whether it was in Alexandria, but me and the kids were sliding down the hill, and she said, "That looks like so much fun. I wish I could do that." I said, "Well, do it. What's the word about it?" "Well, people will laugh at me," she said. I said, "Screw people. Just enjoy yourself." Oh, I couldn't do that. She could not let herself go.
Yeah.
She could not enjoy herself.
That's sad.
Never did. She never could let go.
She felt like people would judge her and think
Yeah.
she'd be improper or something like
Yeah.
that. Okay.
And I was so sad about that she couldn't do that. I mean, one time on a water slide, I had when we were in our square dance club in Santa Cruz. I was going down this one of these like a water park,
Yeah.
and I was going down having a ball, and I finally talked her into going down one, and I went down first so I could catch her when she got. And when she came down, the look of terror on her face was amazing, and she was just absolutely terrorized.
Oh my gosh.
But anyhow, then we got her. And I think I bought a motorcycle after Pauline, Rhonda, Rihanna, no,
Rhonda.
Julia.
So
After
now
Julia.
you dropped to all 4 kids aboard. Okay.
Yes, all 4 kids aboard. I bought a motorcycle, brand new Suzuki 360, and I used that to go to work with, and really enjoyed it. It was really a nice, shiny new bike, and I wanted to do some hill climbing.
I wish we had the pictures. I wish we could show the pictures. Maybe I'll figure out a way to show some pictures, like at the end or edit it in before.
Yeah.
Of the time period you're talking about.
Yeah. But anyhow, I was saying before, so rudely interrupted. I remember coming home one time from. Me and her had gone to a party. That's when we were at Goddard Space Village, and I was a bit tipsy, not a bit, quite a bit, and I said, "I'm gonna get on this motorcycle and just take a test ride before I go to bed." And she says, "No, you're not. You're drunk and you're gonna get killed." I says, "No, I'm doing it," and I did. Shame on me, but I did. And I got up on the Baltimore-Washington Parkway, which was not too far from where we lived, and I got up to 120 miles an hour on that motorcycle, down for about 10 miles, and then turned around and got up to about 122 miles on the way back, and then parked it. It was really weird too because at that fast, the weight of that motorcycle was so small, only weighed about 300 pounds, that when we went over a slight hump, I would actually become airborne.
Yeah.
And so you kind of like float. And it
was exhilarating.
it came to my mind that that's probably not a good idea, but I did it anyhow.
You weren't being very wise at all. You could have very easily died.
Oh yeah. But I got home okay and parked it and went to bed. And
Keep talking.
later on, I bought an older used Suzuki 250, and I did a lot of hill climbing there. That was at Goddard, also Goddard Space Village. And I remember one time me and this buddy Frank Bamilla, one of my longtime best friends, probably the best friend I ever had.
Oh.
We're in the woods. We had on the road to Goddard Space Center. There was a big forest there, and we just went into that forest, and maybe about a half mile in a clearing, we were sitting on the rocks by having a break, just talking, and we noticed this Jeep come out of one side of the clearing and went across the clearing and went out the other side, and then about 3 minutes later, this police officer walking came out of that same place that Jeep had come out of, and he's just sitting over there talking. So he walks over to us and he says, "Did you see a Jeep come through here a few minutes ago?" "Yeah, we did. Why?" He says, "Well, could you describe it?" So we described it, and he says, "Well, that was the Jeep I was chasing, but I don't think it was the right one. I think it was probably another one." So he says, "By the way, I'm lost. Could you tell me where we're at?"
Oh my God.
I said, "Well, you're about probably half a mile from Goddard Road 1 or what it was, and maybe a mile and a half from road such and such." He says, "Well, could one of you give me a ride on your vehicle to my vehicle?" And sure, jump on. I had a bigger bike, the bigger motorcycle, so I put him on the back of my bike, and we went through the woods, and I got on a road, and then I had to ride about maybe 2 miles up to get to his cruiser. And while I was driving along, me and Frank with both motorcycles, and I'm driving along, and one of my buddies that I worked at Goddard with pulled up beside us, and he says, "You know there's a policeman following you?" He was sitting on the back of my bike. I said, "Yeah, I know there's a policeman come following me." So he went on down the road, and then I got the cop to his car, and when he got off, he gave me his card, and he says, "Thanks for the ride, and if you ever have any problem with policemen, give me a call. I'll help you out."
Okay. You'll get a good get out of jail free card. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see what we were doing on time. Do you want to tell any more?
Well, let me see. I worked at Goddard for 8 years, I think it was, and it was all during the when we first started flying, in space. The first thing they did was they flew the Vanguard to the moon and crashed it on the moon on purpose, just to see what happened, with the reverberations and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the very first space shot. And then I worked all the way through everything with the what was first Gemini, and then the Apollo. What was the second one? Gemini. And that was the first one was a one-man capsule. Gemini was a two-man. So the first one was something else. I can't remember what it was. Mercury, and then Gemini, and then the three-man, the Apollo, when they put people up, in space and new spacewalks and all that stuff, and then all the way through the where we actually landed on the moon, and all of the moon landings, I worked there, and then after they stopped flying the Apollo, and weren't doing much of anything, I quit Goddard, and I went to work for a company in an industrial area outside of Washington D.C. And I worked in a little shop that all we did was, we had one mainframe 1401 computer, large mainframe computer.
And what time period was this?
This was in early 60s, I think it was.
So I was born in 62, so you going backtracking again?
Yeah. Anyhow, when I worked there, I had a couple of times, one time specifically where I had a chance to make $50,000 in one night, but it was illegal. And my integrity wouldn't allow me to do it. Well, the guy knocked on the door. We had 50 tapes, computer tapes, that had specialized names and addresses, because we made address labels to put on junk mail and send out to, all this junk mail you get sometimes.
Yeah.
I made those labels. And 50 tapes and this guy, I worked the midnight shift, and this guy come and knocked on my window one night about 5 in the morning. I never have anybody bother me, so it kind of startled me. And I opened up the window, I asked him what he wanted, and he says, I've got 50 blank tapes, computer tapes here, and I'll give you $1,000 a piece if you'll copy those tapes and give them to me. And I says, I don't think so.
Sounds like spies or something. I just want to show a few quick pictures. Just kind of let people see if anybody wants to. This is my dad and mom when they got married in Bermuda. Aren't they gorgeous? Handsome, beautiful, beautiful. And then this is after they had Pauline. And there they are standing by. What car do you think that is?
That's the 360 North Howard Street in Alexandria.
Okay, so this is the 62. So you see my mommy has a big tummy because little Margie's getting ready to be born. And then here I am. I am born. That's Mama Margaret, my mom's mother. She probably came over to help out with the new baby. And that's little Pauline. And Pauline always had such a sweet, little, happy, proud face when she was taking care of her sisters. And this is my dad when he was holding me. He was very proud to be holding me. And I'll show some more pictures later, but I'll maybe superimpose them into it or something.
Okay, and what was I left off? What were
you talking about? What were we talking about?
Now you made me lose my train.
Sorry. You finished that one story though. You finished the story.
Yeah.
Well, you switched from Springfield to
okay. I was working at that little industrial center, and we decided, just out of a drop of a hat, without another job pending or anything else. While we were in Goddard, we did buy our first house. There was a lady that worked with me at Goddard, that her husband was a contractor and he built houses. And she her husband gave me a really good deal for a brand new house he just finished, $20,000, $20,500.
So $20,000. This was in Laurel, Maryland.
Yes, Laurel, Maryland. It was $20,500, not $25,000, but $20,500.
It was $2,500 for a house.
$25,500.
Okay.
Anyhow, we bought that house, and it was great. We lived in it for a couple of years, I'm not sure which. Had a really fertile ground. We had a garden in the back that just biggest tomatoes and all that stuff.
Yes, I remember selling the tomatoes on the side of the road. You remember that?
Oh yeah, I sure do. And then we decided, I can't remember there was some sort of a crisis happened. I can't remember what it was, but anyhow, we decided to move to California on the drop of a hat, without a job pending, anything else. And we moved to California. We drove to California, and I drove a U-Haul truck with all our furniture. And we got there, and while I was looking for a job, it was just a coincidence that there was a fella that worked at Goddard with me that worked for a different contractor. And they had rules that you could not hire somebody away from another contractor. If he wanted to hire you, you'd have to quit for at least 30 days. and then they could hire you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he kept begging me to do that because he wanted to hire me. It was a manager of a matter of fact, it was IBM was a contract, IBM contract, data processing. So when I went to California, I'm looking in want ads, and I just happened to see his name, looking for an operator at a space.
And
in
you
San-
remember him?
Oh yeah, I remembered him. So I called him up and I says, "Are you Paul? Paul? It wasn't Paul Wardman. Whatever his name was. Are you the Paul such and such that used to work at Goddard Space Center that kept wanting me to get hired?" He says, "Yeah, why?" I said, "This is Gordon Williamson." He said, "Get your ass over here. You're hired."
All right. Well, we're gonna wrap it up because it's an hour now. This is the
Okay.
longest one so far, but this will be a good place to stop.
Well, I just want to say, I worked there for 5 years and went from computer operator to operations analyst to supervisor to manager in 5 years.
Congratulations. You made lots of, what's it called? Got lots of promotions and stuff. Good
yeah.
for you. But that's a good place to stop, because now next one we start, it'll be when we move to California. All right? We move to California.
Well, we're already in California.
You just said that, though.
Okay.
So we'll pick up from there. Bye. Say bye.
Bye-bye.